Usually when we examine a massive class action settlement, we're looking at the intricate architecture of justice.
Right, the formulas, the distribution models, things like that.
Exactly. The legal precedents. We assume that when billions of dollars are on the line, the system is just fortified with unbreakable safeguards.
You'd certainly hope so.
But then you step into the world of medical legal administration, specifically regarding neurocognitive decline, and suddenly those safeguards start looking, well, a lot like Swiss cheese.
Yeah, I mean, the diagnostic landscape for neurological conditions is just inherently complex. It relies on clinical observation, self-reporting, and a lot of medical history.
It's not like a broken bone where you just look at an X-ray.
Exactly. And when you introduce a massive financial incentive into that murky landscape, the pressure on those diagnostic criteria becomes immense.
Which brings us to our mission for today's deep dive. For you listening, we are unpacking an 80-plus page legal document that dropped just a week ago on June 8, 2026.
It's a ruling from the special masters overseeing the NFL Concussion Settlement Program.
And the central narrative here is just staggering. We are looking at a meticulously documented roadmap of how a small group of lawyers managed to extract over $95 million from the settlement program.
Oh, $5 million.
Yeah, by allegedly manufacturing 98 claims for Parkinson's disease.
It's really hard to wrap your head around that number.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we are not talking about a few lawyers exaggerating a tremor or, coaching a client to play up their symptoms. We are dissecting a fully operational, multi-million-dollar medical laundering syndicate.
To really grasp the scale of the vulnerability here, we have to look at the structural design of the NFL settlement itself.
Right.
It features what's called an uncapped monetary award fund. So there is no finite pie that the players are fighting over.
Oh, I see. So if a retired player meets the criteria for a qualifying condition, the fund just pays out.
Precisely. Because it's uncapped, the entire mechanism rests heavily on strict, standardized diagnostic guidelines.
The guardrails, basically.
Yeah. For Parkinson's, they use the Gelb criteria. That demands observable, measurable motor deficits. Things like resting tremors and severe bradykinesia, which is the slowness of movement.
So it's a system built on trust, really.
Completely.
Yeah.
It assumes that independent doctors will impartially apply those criteria and that attorneys will operate in good faith.
Right.
So the critical question this document poses for you to think about is, what happens when the advocates hired to protect these vulnerable players decide to exploit the system's blind spots instead?
Well, to understand how you steal $95 million, you really have to start at the source. How do you even begin to fake a highly visible, debilitating neurological disease?
It's not easy. You can't just fake Parkinson's. The Gelb criteria demands specific physical declines.
Right. It's not a subjective pain scale where someone just says, my back hurts.
Exactly. So constructing a $95 million illusion requires way more than a simple lie. It requires a mastermind.
And the audit document points directly to an attorney named Douglas Grossinger. He built his operation through really aggressive cold calling, specifically targeting retired NFL players.
Yeah, the audit notes he was essentially promising them a lucrative Parkinson's diagnosis if they signed away their representation to him.
Which introduces an immediate logistical hurdle, right? Because many of these retired players already had legal representation.
Yes, and in the personal injury world, if a client fires their current lawyer to go with someone else, the original lawyer places a lien on the final settlement.
Because they want to be compensated for the work they've already done.
Right. So a sudden wave of players firing their lawyers to join Grossinger for newly discovered Parkinson's claims, well, that would trigger an immediate investigation by the claims administrator.
But Grossinger anticipated that, which is wild. He engaged in what the special masters call prearranged lick-in resolutions.
You just bypass the official program entirely.
He did. He would contact a player's former lawyer and offer a $75,000 upfront cash payment, plus a promise of another $25,000 from the eventual award.
Just to quietly release the lien.
Yeah. And he conducted these negotiations completely off the books, mostly via text messages and phone calls, to ensure there was no public paper trail.
It's incredibly brazen.
It's like selling someone a termite-free certificate for a house you haven't even inspected yet and paying off the original home inspector in cash behind a dumpster to look the other way.
That is a very accurate analogy.
But I gotta push back for a second. I struggle to view the players purely as victims here. I mean, if a lawyer promises you a massive payout for a debilitating disease you know you don't have, and you actively switch lawyers to get in on it, aren't they just in on the scam?
It's a fair question, but the document details a real spectrum of involvement, and it highlights a profound human tragedy underneath it all.
Okay, how so?
Well, yes, there is evidence that some players were aware of the maneuvering.
Mm.
Like the audit includes a detail where one player openly boasted to his peers that he was getting Parkinson's disease through Grossinger's firm.
Wow, literally getting the disease.
Yeah. However, we have to remember we are dealing with a demographic of aging athletes. Many of them have documented histories of traumatic brain injuries and genuine cognitive decline.
Oh, right. So they're highly susceptible to suggestion.
Extremely susceptible, especially from authority figures. These lawyers presented themselves as the ultimate authority, telling these vulnerable men that they had a disease they just didn't fully understand yet.
And that the law firm would handle all the medical logistics for them.
Exactly. The lawyers completely manufactured the medical history. They bypassed the official settlement doctors entirely for the initial phase.
Right, because Grossinger sent the players to private, non-program forensic doctors first. His firm selected the physicians, scheduled the appointments, and paid for the evaluations out of pocket.
And the nature of these evaluations is just wild.
It really is. The audit paints this vivid picture of an incident at the Dallas Hilton Hotel.
A hotel room diagnosis.
Yeah. You have a retired player walking into a hotel lobby, and there are several other former NFL players just hanging around, waiting for their turn.
Unbelievable.
And the doctor running the evaluations is Chirian Krunapuja, who isn't even licensed or based in Texas. He flew in from Oklahoma specifically for this.
So Dr. Krunapuja evaluates the player in a hotel suite, diagnoses him with Parkinson's, and then immediately refers him to an associate, Dr. Avesh Verma.
Right, to secure a prescription for levodopa.
Which is a huge red flag. Levodopa is a heavy-duty dopamine replacement agent. It's the gold standard for treating the motor symptoms of Parkinson's.
But you don't just prescribe it after a 20-minute chat in a hotel room, right?
Absolutely not. Prescribing it after a single brief evaluation drastically deviates from standard neurological protocols. Usually a diagnosis requires extensive observation over a long period of time.
And the physiological consequences for the players were severe. That player diagnosed in the Dallas Hilton suite actually started taking the levodopa.
Because the doctor told him to?
Yeah, but he didn't actually have Parkinson's. So he suffered terrible side effects. We're talking severe nausea, dyskinesia.
That's awful.
He actually demanded his medical files from the hotel doctor to find out why he was given this drug. And Dr. Verma later had to admit that no written report from the initial hotel evaluation even existed.
The diagnosis was essentially verbal.
Right. Verma even conceded that it was entirely possible the player didn't have Parkinson's at all. They were literally just heavily medicating a healthy man to establish a paper trail.
And the incentives for the doctors participating in this preliminary phase were overwhelming. The audit found clear evidence of incentive-caused bias.
Money, basically.
Yes, the law firms were directly compensating these private doctors for favorable diagnostic reports.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond direct payment, the lawyers cultivated a culture of exclusive access.
Oh, the networking perks were unbelievable. Dr. Jeffrey Steinberg, one of the most frequently utilized outside doctors in the scheme, received an invitation to Grossinger's private, extravagant Super Bowl party.
At Landry's Seafood House in New Orleans, right?
Yep. We're talking about a VIP guest list packed with NFL Hall of Famers. It is a textbook attempt to compromise a medical professional's clinical judgment by offering them proximity to celebrity and wealth.
So at this point in the operation, Grossinger has a client with a piece of paper diagnosing them with Parkinson's, an active pharmacy record showing they are taking levodopa.
Right. But a hotel room diagnosis won't actually get you paid by the NFL. You have to pass the official test.
Exactly. That initial paper trail is essentially worthless on its own. The NFL program requires a rigorous, standardized evaluation by an official, highly vetted, qualified monetary award fund physician.
The MAF doctors.
Right.
Which raises the most baffling question of this entire document for me. If Grossinger just has a flimsy note from an unvetted doctor, the scheme should die the second the player steps into an official clinic.
You would think so.
So how did these manufactured records trick the NFL's rigorously vetted MAF doctors who are actively looking for the Gelb criteria?
What's fascinating here is how the scheme weaponized the ethical constraints of standard medical practice, specifically the principle of clinical deference.
Okay, break that down for us.
We have to look at the pharmacology of levodopa. It is designed to mask Parkinsonian symptoms. When these players walked into the official MAF clinics for their rigorous evaluations, they were actively taking heavy doses of the medication.
Because the hotel doctors prescribed it?
Yes. Consequently, they presented with very mild motor deficits, or in some cases, no observable symptoms whatsoever.
That is just. The lawyers literally medicated healthy people to create an alibi for their lack of symptoms during the official exam.
Precisely. The MAF doctor is evaluating a patient who appears relatively stable, but the patient presents a comprehensive lawyer-funded dossier.
Right, an official initial diagnosis from another physician and an active prescription for levodopa.
So the clinical dilemma is severe. A neurologist cannot ethically force a patient to undergo a washout period.
Meaning they can't just tell them to stop taking the medication?
Right, abruptly taking them off levodopa just to see if their tremors return is dangerous.
Yeah.
The withdrawal can trigger a life-threatening condition called neuroleptic malignant syndrome,
Oh.
or can cause severe physical rebound symptoms. So the MAF doctor has to assume the medication is simply managing the disease effectively. They are ethically forced to defer to the outside paperwork.
That is incredibly manipulative. The audit even notes that many official MAF doctors backdated their own diagnoses to align perfectly with the date of the hotel room evaluations.
Because they just assumed the first doctor got it right.
And to ensure that deference happened smoothly, the lawyers aggressively curated which official doctors their clients saw.
Yeah, they had to control the environment.
The settlement program has a rule. A player must see a MAF doctor within 150 miles of their primary residence. It's designed to prevent doctor shopping.
A very standard safeguard.
But the audit details how Grossinger and a parallel law firm running a similar scheme called Reppert, Oates and Vitell, or ROV, systematically abused the 150-mile exception rule.
They bombarded the claims administrator with requests to let their clients travel across the country to see their preferred doctors.
Right. They engineered access to physicians who possessed a statistically improbable track record of deferring to outside paperwork without asking difficult questions.
There's a really telling anecdote in the document about this.
Oh, the wife from Texas, yes. The document highlights a settlement class member's wife based in Texas. She was furious, complaining bitterly to another player's wife about having to take time off work and travel 1,300 miles from Texas to Orlando, Florida.
Just to see a specific neurologist.
Exactly. And that neurologist was Dr. Daniel Jacobs. The reason the lawyers mandated that cross-country flight is that Dr. Jacobs approved an astonishing 80 to 100% of the Parkinson's claims he evaluated.
That is absurdly high.
That single doctor was responsible for over 16% of all submitted Parkinson's claims in the entire multi-billion-dollar program.
A statistical anomaly of that magnitude highlights a systemic failure in the review process.
Truly.
The scheme was so well constructed that it even deceived the Appeals Advisory Panel, which is the highest tier of medical review in the settlement.
Right, the final gatekeepers.
Panel members explicitly noted in their files that the patients exhibited minimal or absent symptoms, yet they still approved the claims because the underlying manufactured medical dossier appeared completely uniform and consistent.
So Grossinger has effectively hacked the diagnostic process. He has the paperwork, he has the masked symptoms, and he has the compliant official doctors.
It's a perfect illusion.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Even with a foolproof medical laundering system, if I am a single attorney and I suddenly submit 98 identical Parkinson's claims, the NFL's digital fraud algorithms are going to flag my firm's ID immediately.
Because the system is built to detect statistical clustering.
Exactly. So Grossinger needed a way to launder the origin of the claims. He couldn't be the public face of his own operation.
Right. The algorithmic tripwires necessitated a very sophisticated disguise.
So he utilized what the audit terms cover firms. He established off-the-books, clandestine co-counsel arrangements with several other law firms.
Firms like Feder Law, Pro Athlete Law Firm, and Syme Law.
Yep. Grossinger executed all the logistics. He recruited the players, arranged the hotel room doctors, and funded the levodopa prescriptions. But when the finalized dossier was ready for submission, Grossinger stayed invisible.
The cover firms just slapped their own letterheads on the files and submitted them as their own clients.
It's the legal equivalent of using burner phones. He is renting out other law firms' letterheads to launder his own manufactured claims.
It was an overt, calculated effort to fragment the data and bypass the fraud detection analytics. And it reveals the sheer arrogance embedded in the operation.
But totally. Grossinger demanded an absolute blackout on paper trails.
He refused to formalize these co-counsel agreements in writing. All coordination between himself, the cover firms, and the players was conducted via phone calls or encrypted text messages.
He really believed his operational security was flawless.
He did, but the arrogance inevitably led to sloppiness.
Always does. When the claims administrator eventually began subpoenaing financial records, they uncovered a $5,000 check sent from Syme Law, one of the cover firms, directly to Dr. Steinberg.
And what did the memo line say?
Written plainly on the memo line was a note that read, Doug Groh, 9/16/24, Zeld money. They documented the invisible mastermind's name directly on the financial receipt.
Incredible. And the brazenness extends well beyond Grossinger. The audit devotes significant analysis to ROV, that parallel firm operating its own independent version of this medical laundering scheme.
Yeah, ROV's selection of preliminary outside doctors demonstrates a complete disregard for medical integrity.
ROV repeatedly utilized a physician named Dr. Jonathan Fellis to provide those unquestioned initial diagnoses.
The background check the audit performed on Dr. Fellis is just disturbing.
It really is. His medical license had faced repeated suspensions and was, at one point, fully revoked by the New Jersey Board of Medical Examiners.
And the cause for revocation was engaging in sexual misconduct with a female patient whom he was actively treating for a traumatic brain injury at a rehabilitation facility.
Let that sink in. This is the physician ROV installed as an undisclosed, compensated diagnostic expert to evaluate a highly vulnerable population of brain-injured former professional athletes.
It's sickening. ROV intentionally concealed Dr. Fellis's disciplinary history, and they hid the fact that they were compensating him directly from both the official MAF doctors and the claims administrator.
Dr. Fellis was highly aware of the ecosystem he was operating in, too. The investigators unearthed a podcast interview he conducted in 2022.
Oh, yeah, where he explicitly referred to medical legal forensic work as a, quote, money train.
A money train. That was the foundational medical authority ROV built their claims upon.
So we're looking at a localized ecosystem saturated with manufactured diagnostic histories, weaponized medical deference, compliant cover firms, and compromised physicians.
It's massive, but a conspiracy requiring the coordination of dozens of independent actors is inherently fragile.
It's bound to leak. And the implosion began with a flood of anonymous tips. In late 2024 and early 2025, the claims administrator's tip line was just overwhelmed.
The callers were providing highly specific, non-public operational details.
Yeah, they knew lawyers were paying top dollar to dictate the exact phrasing of medical reports. They explicitly detailed the abuse of the 150-mile travel exception.
These weren't vague complaints. They were the kind of granular leaks that usually come from disgruntled former employees or rival firms.
So the specificity and coherence of the intelligence triggered an unprecedented system-wide audit. The claims administrator mobilized investigators to map the financial and communication networks connecting the law firms and the doctors.
But when the investigators approached these law firms to ask fundamental questions, like demanding to see the co-counsel agreements with Grossinger, the firms launched a massive stonewalling campaign.
Right. They refused to hand over financial ledgers detailing their payments to the outside doctors. They claimed attorney-client privilege protected their business arrangements.
Which is ridiculous in this context.
They even accused the claims administrator of defamation and aggressively threatened civil litigation.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, attempting to utilize aggressive courtroom litigation tactics within a contractually created administrative system was a The NFL Concussion Settlement is not an open-ended civil court. It is governed by a highly specific contract. You do not possess the same broad discovery protections or due process rights you would have before a standard judge.
Access to the uncapped monetary award fund is strictly conditional.
Right. The contract explicitly dictates that cooperation with an audit is mandatory. If a firm unreasonably refuses to produce requested documentation, the special masters possess the unilateral authority to deny the claims outright.
So the stonewalling basically gave the special masters the ultimate jurisdiction to dismantle the entire operation.
It was the final nail in the coffin.
The ruling they handed down is a total, uncompromising demolition of the scheme. They systematically deployed every punitive remedy available within the settlement framework.
Yeah, it was brutal. First, 37 pending Parkinson's claims attached to these firms were denied outright, extinguished instantly.
Con. Second, The special masters permanently disqualified all 5 involved law firms: Douglas Grosinger, Federer Law, Pro Athlete Law Firm, Sime Law, and ROV from participating in the settlement program in any capacity.
They are permanently blacklisted.
Good. Third, any attorney fees that the program was currently holding in escrow for these firms were immediately forfeited. That capital is being clawed back and redistributed into the monetary award fund.
And fourth, establishing a severe precedent drawn from the recent 3M earplugs mass tort litigation, the special masters ordered the law firms to personally reimburse the program for the entirety of the investigative costs incurred during the audit.
Make them pay for the cleanup. But, the collateral damage of this scheme is still devastating.
The tragedy for the players is immense.
Because Grosinger and ROV polluted the diagnostic pool so thoroughly, every single one of those 98 players must start the entire process over from scratch.
Even the players who genuinely suffer from Parkinson's disease. And statistically, there are likely several in that cohort.
Right. They have had their medical files flagged as tainted. They have to secure new evaluations from new unassociated doctors, and their files will be subjected to a heightened mandatory scrutiny protocol.
Simply because they were briefly represented by these corrupt firms.
The attorneys engineered a $95 million illusion, and the genuinely sick players were sent straight to the back of the line.
It is a profound institutional betrayal of the class members the system was built to compensate.
It really is. From aggressive cold calling and cash payoffs behind the scenes to weaponizing the ethical boundaries of neurologists and renting burner law firms, we have just walked through a masterclass in medical legal laundering.
It's an incredible story.
So what does this all mean? For you listening, the underlying lesson is about the inherent fragility of trust-based administrative systems.
Especially uncapped ones.
Right. When a massive settlement is designed with a compassionate intent to compensate the sick without a financial cap, it inadvertently creates a gravity well for highly organized, sophisticated exploitation.
The very rules implemented to protect vulnerable claimants were reverse engineered by the advocates hired to guide them.
And that reality introduces a deeply unsettling final thought to consider.
Yeah, the investigative audit explicitly documented that prior to the collapse of his operation, Douglas Grosinger was actively touring his model to other law firms.
He was trying to recruit more lawyers.
Yes, he was attempting to expand his invisible network of cover firms. Grosinger's syndicate was ultimately dismantled because of internal leaks and operational arrogance.
Right, the sloppy Zell memos.
Exactly. But when you consider the hundreds of billions of dollars currently flowing through class action settlements nationwide, from pharmaceutical mass torts to environmental disaster funds, it forces a critical question.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
How many other invisible, highly disciplined co-counsel networks are quietly draining other massive legal settlements right now, completely undetected?
We want to believe that the mechanics of justice are as clean and binary as an X-ray, broken or not broken. But as this 80-page document proves, if you understand the clinical blind spots and you know exactly whose letterhead to rent, it is frighteningly easy to keep the waters permanently muddy. Thanks for taking the deep dive with us.